detective. Thrill me.
Thanks for joining us again. Jared and I will cover a little bit of... would you call this Australian fare, Jared? Because this was primarily shot here in Australia, correct?
Yeah, it's
and
pretty
most
close.
Australian actors, I think.
Yeah, a fair few. It was shot in Melbourne.
Yes.
And Lee Warnell's obviously from Melbourne, so it's pretty close.
Yeah. I would say it was an Australian film. We're talking about Upgrade from 2018. But before we get to that, let's do a little bit of a run-through of what we've been watching. Just letting everyone know, too, we've got a little letterboxd account. So if you do want to check out perhaps sometimes some deeper thoughts on some of these films that we've watched, we're putting some content on there. So check us out if you get the chance. Now, Jared, what have you been watching, mate?
I continued on a little bit of Dolph Lundgren that we mentioned last time that I'd watched Dark Angel. I moved on to the Joshua Tree this time.
Right. And how was the Joshua Tree?
Yeah, look, it was pretty standard. Pretty standard action stuff there. Wasn't bad. Enjoyable enough, but go back to it in a hurry. I got onto The Blob.
Yes.
Rewatched The Blob, which I hadn't watched in a while. I had the Blu-ray sitting there, so myself and our friend Maddie chucked it on and had a look, and it held up very well. I enjoyed it, very much so. Maddie did too, so that's a big stamp of approval there for The Blob.
Yeah.
I watched The Wraith with Charlie Sheen and Sherilyn Fenn and Clint Howard.
How did The Wraith stand up?
Yeah, not great. It was okay. If you like a lot of car chases, you'd probably be pretty happy, but it was a fairly
revenge sort of film, isn't it?
Yeah, a bit of a revenge kind of flick, a couple of sort of supernatural elements in there, and look, it wasn't terrible. The stunts and the driving sequences and that were pretty well handled, but just probably depends how much of that you're looking for as to your enjoyment level, I suppose. Randy Quaid also has a prominent role there in that one, so yeah.
Stamp of approval.
Yeah, stamp of approval.
Well, that was Randy when he was still with us.
Correct. That was Randy before he'd sort of dived headlong off the deep end.
Yeah.
So obviously, me and you have got a little conversation to have about some Halloween movies, but I punched out a few in the series. I jumped onto H2O again, thoroughly enjoyed, as I normally do when I'm watching that one, and I went straight into Resurrection after that. So, look, things didn't improve there. They're still pretty shaky.
It is not one of the better efforts.
No. Not close. Yeah, a bit of a shame because I felt it had a couple of decent ideas, especially, when you read Taking Shape and you look at where they wanted to go with it. There was probably some ideas there that could have worked out, but the end result is it's just very ordinary.
Look, looking back on that picture, and I haven't watched it in a while, but Busta Rhymes is the best and worst thing about the film, because he kind of seems to be, I don't know, hamming it up, which is what the film sort of kind of requires in some capacity. But then also he seems to be kind of the heroic character, which he doesn't really fulfill. It's a real strange sort of mix as to what he's doing there.
That seemed like a producer's call.
Yeah.
That they wanted more. They reshot to put more of him in there.
Yeah, I would suggest yes. He was considered kind of like the star, even though he's not really in it that much, if I remember rightly. He's not in it for about 30 minutes or something like that.
But yeah, his role got beefed up, so there was reasons they were making those calls, but just in general, the movie just sucks. So I don't know what else to say, really.
You have no other. You have nothing. You can't possibly provide any further light on it improved in any manner.
I won't expand any further at this time, but it certainly did improve. So,
Okay.
yeah. I finally watched the Poughkeepsie tapes.
Yep.
Because that showed up on Stan for us. Now, I'd been looking to check it out for a while because the premise is quite intriguing. And there was some creepy parts to it, but I think the end result's pretty highly overrated.
Yeah.
I wasn't a huge fan of it. And I jumped into a couple of series that I'm sort of watching all the way through again. The first one's X-Men. So I checked out X-Men, X2 and The Last Stand. The first one's probably actually not as good. And I think that might just be aging a little in comparison to things that have come after it that are probably a little bit better. It's still enjoyable, still very enjoyable, but it's probably come down a peg. X2 I still think is right up there with the best in the series. Not quite the best, but it's right up there. And The Last Stand, yeah, again, that's another one that I don't need to go too deep into because people kind of know where that is, and I believe that's where it's rated is where it should be.
Yeah.
And the other series I'm working through is Hellraiser.
Yeah.
So I skipped Hellraiser 1 because we'd watched it fairly recently, but I watched Hellbound, Hellraiser 2, and I watched Hell on Earth.
And how do they stack up? Because I haven't seen either of them in a long time, but I remember enjoying them both.
Hellraiser 2 was okay. Like, I didn't... I know some people like it as much as the first one. I thought it probably wasn't there, but I did kind of like that they tried to expand the mythology a little bit, and having the what's her name, Kirsty from the original one, back was a good move. Overall, yeah, I quite enjoyed that one. But yeah, Hellraiser 3, it's okay as a kind of slashery, sort of horror-y kind of fare, but it's sort of just, you establish this stuff in 1 and 2, and then it kind of goes the opposite way. Like things that are supposed to work in 1 and 2, then there's sort of no reason for Pinhead to be where he is at the end of, or at the start of 3, and then a couple of the Xenobites that, I know there's a few, I'm not the first one to have these opinions. A lot of people have kind of gone on record about the Xenobites that are created by, the bloke with the camera and the fucking CD head Xenobite. Like, interesting, but I wouldn't say they were totally successful. But yeah, it was okay. I wasn't expecting to like him that much because I had never been, from what I'd seen of Pinhead and the crew previously, they were never one of my sort of favourite series. So to go back and go from the start and check them all out again, it's a bit of fun, and it's probably holding up a lot better than I was anticipating.
Well, if you continue on, you're about to hit some rough seas, I think it'd be fair to say.
Well, I'm starting to get into territory of, regularly taking a script and going, fuck, let's chuck Hellraiser in that somehow. And that happened a number of times, I believe. So yeah, I'm just about to plumb the depths.
Because I remember seeing one that was on Netflix, and it was, I think, like midway through that second patch, and it was found footage. It had Pinhead in it.
Fucking hell. Yeah. Can't wait for that one.
How does this work?
Yeah. Well, maybe they found the footage in the head of the fucking camera Xenobite. I don't know. I don't know how that works.
It was some strange stuff, if I remember correctly. So, anything else? That was it?
No, that was it.
All right. I checked out a film on Shudder called Mayhem, which kind of interestingly had some things similarly mirroring the current pandemic situation, which I thought was interesting, and it was a bit of a ripper. I enjoyed it. It was really, really good. I put a review up on Letterboxd. The two main actors, Stephen Yeun, who was in The Walking Dead, and Samara Weaving, absolutely fantastic. Like, they're really, really good. It's super over the top, got a little bit of dark humour in it. It's definitely worth a watch. It's definitely worth checking out, especially if you've got Shudder. For the few of us have got it. After that, I went deep diving into Charles Bronson territory.
Ooh.
On Stan, and I went with Tender Midnight, Messenger of Death, and Death Wish 4, The Crackdown.
Right, so you went all the best ones.
All the best ones. Look, Messenger of Death was kind of the odd one out because it's kind of serious, which it kind of surprised me.
That matches Charles's face.
It was very...
That's his one mode, isn't it?
Yeah, and it was kind of serious. It had this whole tone of this family is murdered and it's kind of like a ritualistic killing and all this kind of stuff. And then there's corruption and behind-the-scenes machinations, and he's a reporter who's, of course, becomes a vigilante.
A reporter?
It was a bit strange.
I mean, I could buy him as an architect. Not sure about a reporter.
Well, I'm going to go with I couldn't buy him as an architect in Death Wish 4.
Well, an architect of death,
I have never laughed so hard in Death Wish 4 when there's a sequence where he kind of sneaks into a party as a barman or something.
Yeah.
And then he goes to the toilet and he sees them kill somebody. And then, I don't know, he farts or he trips over something in the bathroom. And they come in and they look at him and they go, "What are you doing in here?" And just to have Charlie Bronson give it the old, "I'm using the toilet."
Yeah.
It's like, oh yeah.
Great
and then
stuff.
Because they're gangsters. I just assumed he's a witness. Let's kill him. No.
Yeah.
All right, you didn't say anything.
Oh, yeah, let the man finish.
So, Death Wish 4 had its kind of, I guess you'd say, if I was going to say something about Death Wish 4, it kind of had its charms because it's so silly.
They're always funny to watch because they are just... I mean, they get so silly very quickly, those movies.
But the real jewel in the crown is 10 to Midnight. I mean, it is just... This dude is dead set running around nude. Like, he's committing murders in the nick. And there's a sequence that I could, for some reason, I shouldn't laugh. I shouldn't have really been laughing at this because it was nothing. It wasn't really that funny. But there's a scene where Bronson's goes to meet his daughter and she's a nurse, a student nurse. And so they're in the commissary getting lunch. And so they're walking down the line, picking things up and putting it on their trays.
Yeah.
And they're having a conversation. It's her and Bronson and his partner. So this scene goes on for about 3 or 4 minutes. They're having this, basically it's a pretty nondescript conversation about something. And then Charles gets to the front to pay. And then he kind of looks down and he goes, I've got quiche and coleslaw. I hate quiche. And coleslaw makes me vomit. And then he just turns around and heads back to change it. Like, oh my God. What was that?
Right. Sounds like a well scripted bit of work there.
Yeah, and it's got everything in the canon sort of sleaze. Bag of sleaze, it's got nudity, it's got lewd,
I can't say
lewd phone calls.
I can't say I've come across nude killer before.
Yeah, and he is dead set. There's a sequence where he's chasing Bronson's daughter down the road in the dark, and in silhouette his whole fella.
What? So how's he killing people?
Oh, he's stabbing him.
Whacking him with his old fellows.
He's stabbing him. But he just... At one point he kills a woman in like a state park and he's dressed in a pair of runners and some rubber gloves and that's it.
I'm going to check it out.
Oh
my God.
I had to laugh further because I quickly checked the trivia on IMDb, and allegedly the end of the film, Bronson was supposed to confront him and they were supposed to have a bit of a tete-a-tete, hand-to-hand. But Bronson wasn't real keen to wrestle with a nude bloke.
Yeah, knob to knob. I thought for a second there, I thought you were going to say Bronson was also going to be in the nude. It was going to be a Borat style.
No. Bronson nixed that because he felt the other guy had the upper hand. He had three weapons to swing around.
Oh shit!
You have got to check this out.
Yeah, I got it.
Absolute
I have to have a
gem.
look.
It's one of the best of the canon era.
Yeah.
And I was this close to jumping on some Chucky Norris Invasion USA.
Oh, that'll be happening. And also, as I briefly mentioned to you, I have found a Robert Bronzy film on Amazon, so fucking stay tuned for that one.
Stay tuned for Bronzy. Oh, I can't wait. And one thing that we spoke about briefly about Charles Bronson was as he segued into the twilight of his career and life in the late 80s, the filmmakers seem to want to have him running around a lot.
A lot. He was asked to break into a trot regularly.
If you ask Frankenstein to go for a run, this is what you're getting. You're getting Bronson basically hobbling down the road.
But he's also got this
65.
He's also got this signature style where his hands seem to be like grabbing at sort of invisible handles and pulling himself along when he runs. It's a signature Bronson style. That run.
It's unique to Bronson only.
Yeah, a lot of elbow, a lot of shoulder work back and forth and reaching and grabbing and yeah.
I mean, I know the guy was in good shape for a 65-year-old, but I said the same thing the other day, and, look, maybe I was slightly off my chops a little bit there when I said Stallone. One of the problems with Stallone in Rambo, Last Blood, is the guy's 70 years old. And you can't show a 70-year-old guy getting the shit kicked out of him or fighting hand-to-hand or anything like that.
When it's a Canon picture, no problem. There's no problem there.
Yeah, that's because you chuck a stunt double in there.
Yeah. We ask him to run. My favourite is the couple of times where he was asked to sort of fall over though and pretend he tripped. It was. I mean, he could sell it. He really could sell it. Not effectively, but.
But the only other thing I watched was the first episode of the Night Stalker documentary.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Look, it looks solid, but I get this feeling that it's going to be a bit like The Ripper, where I'll be like, yeah, look, okay, but nothing special. And I think that this is part of the problem with, and we talked about it a couple episodes back, there is just so much, the market is so flooded by true crime that basically there is nothing new under the sun in presenting it, and so it's no different from half the others.
Correct.
And that's what we've got, I think, in this case too.
Yeah. Which is why we've said a number of times that Unsolved Mystery made such a big mistake in not fucking trekking into the wooded areas of the States and hunting for Bigfoot.
Yeah, Colorado bloody wilderness or something. Because I tell you right now, you've got my eyeballs.
Exactly.
I have
just one episode. All you needed was one episode.
I never laughed so hard in my life when you gave me that bloody Monster Hunters or whatever pack that you had, and those dickheads reckon that Bigfoot rocked up in the middle of the night and started banging on their fucking cabin door.
Yeah.
And they had some hair.
Yes.
It's just like, what?
Yeah, I believe that hair tested to be dog hair or
non-human.
I can't remember.
No, I think it tested to be wig hair. But you know what? That shit gets me in the door, though.
Yeah, fucking oath.
If you're saying you're going to present me with some Bigfoot footage, I'm there.
Yeah, it'll get me in the door quicker than it'll get me in the door for another series of what they produced with the latest episodes of Unsolved Mysteries, put it that way.
Yeah, look, you know what? I reckon Unsolved Mysteries is done. I don't think we'll see a further run at it.
I reckon we will, because I think the ratings were still, the Netflix viewing numbers were still there.
Were they?
I believe
Jesus
so.
Christ, I think some people are too easily entertained.
Yeah.
Because to me, there's a hell of a lot better stuff on Netflix itself, let alone other avenues to see it. But
I mean, fuck, watch Tiger King again.
Oh, yeah, well, you know, not to go off on a tangent because this is going on for too long, but why are we threatening to make a movie of Tiger King? Didn't you just watch 10 episodes of the best fucking documentary that's been dished up in a while? We don't need a dramatisation of it. The documentary is fucking perfect.
Yeah, well, it's going to be hard to do more than they did, surely.
Yeah. And so what you're getting is some half-assed movie version that cuts half of it out.
Yeah, although when you start throwing out names like Nicolas Cage, I'm listening.
Yeah, look,
I'm listening.
I'm definitely intrigued by seeing what Nicolas Cage does.
Yes.
But it's the same as, I think there was something else that was mentioned the other day that was a documentary series that they're going to try and make into a film. I'm like, well, why? Why are we doing this?
Yeah.
I guess sometimes people get sort of intrigued by this and want to make it, and then they want to say they're going to look at it from a different angle or something.
Well, that's it. I think they're just going to sell tickets, because I think like certain docos, okay, well, I'm happy to see a dramatisation of the stuff that you didn't see, but in something like Tiger King, I mean, there was fucking hours of the bloke on film, and like, what didn't you see? I mean, when you've got footage of him at a eulogy talking about the recently deceased balls, I don't know how much more we can get.
Yeah, I think we've seen him in his absolute best and worst. So it's fair to say there's nothing that a film version could possibly add.
Correct.
To it. Wasn't he a potential pardon candidate?
Yeah, I think so.
Jesus.
Holy shit.
I'd like to say cooler heads prevailed.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's just unbelievable.
All right. That was it for me. All right, let's take a break. Here's the trailer for 2018's Upgrade.
Can I have everybody's attention?
I'm looking for the guys who murdered my wife.
Are you one of them?
Yeah.
Stan, you can take over.
Thank you. I now have full control.
Hi.
You upgraded. Now you're stronger. Faster. Better than everyone else.
Sit back and enjoy the ride.
Upgrade from 2018, written and directed by Lee Winnell, who wrote and directed The Invisible Man. It's produced by Jason Blum, who produced Halloween, Kylie Dufresne, who produced The Sapphires, and Brian Kavanagh Jones, who produced Sinister. It stars Logan Marshall Green as Grey Trace, Melanie Vallejo as Asher Trace, and Steve Danielson as Jeff Hadley. The budget was $5 million, and the box office was $16 million worldwide. The film was originally titled STEM. Alright, this was the first time I'd actually seen this, Jared, so I'll go first on my thoughts on this picture. Good solid 3.5 out of 5 for me. It's not doing anything super new. It's taking some older sort of things and perhaps reworking them. But some of the choreography and the action stuff is just outstanding. Like, it is absolutely fantastic, some of the stuff they do. Some of the ideas are cool. They're probably not fully fleshed out. And the character development perhaps not quite there. But overall, like, I really enjoyed it. And certainly the midpoint when he starts to go on a bit of a rampage, that stuff is just awesome. So I was really big on it. I gave it 3.5. Like, I was pretty close to 4 at one point. The ending probably lets it down a little bit. But I was close to 4. So I really enjoyed it. It was a good one to get on.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm the same. 3.5. I'd mentioned this a few times, and I think Gibbo may have mentioned it as well.
He did,
but
yes.
Yeah, I was a big fan of it. It took me a while to check it out, but I picked it up on Blu-ray. I'd sort of avoided a lot about it. So when I watched it the first time, I was thoroughly impressed. I think the big thing is it brings up some ideas that it's not really wanting to go into. So that's probably a bit of a downer. It felt like it could have explored some of that a little more. But then the way that it goes about the action stuff, you can't really hold it against it. It's like it just wanted to set itself in this kind of setting and then go that action movie route and use the things that it brings in, the future and the AI and whatever, to facilitate some really awesome sequences. And at that, it succeeds. And that's really where the strength of it is. When you get down to it, the old revenge plot, really, as you said, it kind of wraps up in a fashion that's not. I didn't hate the ending, but I was kind of looking for a little more from where we got to, and it's hard not to look at where it's set and what it could have done with some of the ideas that it brought up to say that. Well, you probably knock a little bit off the score for that because it probably could have delved into it a little deeper. But as you said, a good solid 3.5, really enjoyable. Definitely something, I've seen it a couple of times now, and it's definitely something I'd go back to in the future. So
definitely. And look, starting off with what's good about it, the film looks great. For a movie that's made for $5 million, I mean, you couldn't tell. Honestly, looking at it, if no one had told me it was worth $5 million, I would have guessed somewhere in the vicinity of 20 to 25. I mean, it looks fantastic, and they squeeze every dollar out of that budget.
Yeah, another Blumhouse effort. Just get everything you can out of the budget. And, and don't go overboard with it.
Yeah, so you wouldn't necessarily looking at it. I would have said it was more of a higher budgeted film, but I guess actually breaking it down, there's not a lot of. They don't show a lot of the future.
No,
they show a couple of little shots, and that's it.
Yeah, and a lot of those cool action sequences are in sort of interior sort of locations. Yeah, with not a lot of people involved in them. The main car chase is kind of up close and personal, using cars that are actually real. He's driving a Mustang and she's driving a police car that's actually a police car, not a self-driving vehicle. So I like that was kind of included, and it cuts. It all looks like sort of a chase on a bridge just somewhere. Yeah. So they really work their money, and they get a fantastic look to the film. Yeah, it's really, really solid. The fight choreography. Some of that stuff is the best stuff in the movie.
Yeah, no doubt.
I think the techniques they use in a lot of that choreography is what makes it stand apart, and it really sells the whole AI controlling him angle.
I like the way they've got the kind of camera. It almost follows him all the time. Yeah, it's on him.
It's got that. I can't remember what the sort of technique is, but it keeps his head sort of centered in the frame a couple of times, and everything else is moving. Yeah. And it sort of just absolutely sells that, okay, he's gone into the mode where he's no longer in control. And it does that a couple of times. And then a couple of the fight sequences where, again, whenever he sort of bends over, the camera bends with him and sort of stays focused on him. Some of that stuff was fucking phenomenal.
I read something in the trivia saying that what it was the camera was synced to a mobile, and the mobile is on him in his pocket or in his, tucked somewhere on him. So the camera is syncing to the mobiles and staying with him. That was kind of how they did it. And, it's a really, really nice kind of wrinkle to your bog standard sort of punch up. The first biffo he has in that bloke's apartment, where he just dodges and ducks the knife and everything, and he's talking to Stem while it's all happening. At the same time, it's just really, really cool, and he's just, he just goes to town on the bloke and then proceeds to fucking basically decapitate him.
Yeah.
But I just think that it's like something like John Wick, where you've got to bring something new to the table about how you do some of this stuff.
Yeah.
This kind of does that as well. It kind of brings in this really, really cool choreography that I think works, and it works really well. The stiff movements, it's like a robot.
Yeah, and it's sort of... It's funny, this is going to sound fucking silly again, but I compared it to parts of Venom because he's... Not only does he look a little bit like Tom Hardy, but he's... the way that he's going through those motions... He actually does he does a good job of selling my body's moving independent of me wanting it to.
Yeah.
So he's kind of doing all this shit, and the look on his face says, what the fuck's going on?
Yeah.
And he's sitting there going, Stam, like, what the fuck? What are we doing? But obviously, as an actor, he's got to be doing all that. So I would say in that regard, it probably works a little more successfully than Venom, but it was kind of similar in parts where he's doing this sort of acting performance in the midst of this raging blue, you know?
Yeah. I really like some of that stuff. It was really, really good. So I like the futuristic world. They kind of flesh it out very briefly with a couple of shots. Self-driving cars, Aaron's weird sort of house where he lives and all that sort of stuff. So they don't sort of go overboard because obviously they haven't got a lot of money to do that. But they sell it quickly. They also explain to us what STEM can do in a very short, succinct conversation. Yeah. They don't waffle on and just fill your head with all this bullshit so you're confused as to what it is. So I think that was a nice touch. You've just got to get that, because get that shit out of the way. Don't bother me with tons of exposition about it.
No, and it's, obviously we've spoken about the concerns about sort of technology and that sort of thing are obviously pretty fertile ground. You go back to movies like Terminator, real successful ones like Terminator and RoboCop and Maximum Overdrive. And I think it does a reasonable job of putting its concerns out there. It's fairly surface level, but it does it pretty quickly. But you see, his wife basically handing her life over to technology while he sort of
he won't.
Isn't, but then very quickly he just becomes a passenger and everything he's doing is controlled by the tech and then lets it into his body and he's no longer in charge. And it's all pretty surface level stuff, but the whole, just that idea in general is pretty fertile ground for a solid little piece of sci-fi sort of action work.
Yeah, that's right. I really like the idea that I actually love the fact that STEM kind of provides almost like a little bit of exposition, a little bit of pushes him in the right direction. He's like that devil on his shoulder type of thing.
Yeah.
And I like the idea that it talks. Like initially when they implanted, I just assumed he just became the robot, and then there was no talk inside his head.
Yeah.
But I actually thought that was a really good idea.
Yeah, and it works. It's used to good effect in a couple of particular scenes. Number one, you get a bit of an idea of his... Well, I guess I like the way they portrayed him sort of getting into these situations reluctantly at first. But then, the end goal is something that he wants, so he goes along with it. But as you said, Stem's kind of the, let me push him a little bit by little bit, let me take control. And I think they were also wise with whoever provided Stem's voice, because we've actually got like a point of reference now. And it fits with those AI voices you hear on like Siri and Google and Alexa and all that. Whoever provided the voice did a pretty good job with that. But there is one particular part that I really liked as well where, and I think they could have got a bit more mileage out of it, but where Stem is almost narrating what the detective's doing. Yes. When the detective comes to visit him and he's like, she's checking your boot print. Look at her, because when you look away, you seem guilty and things like that. I thought that right there was something I could have done with a little bit more of. But yeah, as you said, it all fit nicely into this dynamic between Stem and Grey.
Yes. And I like the fact that they basically, Stem insinuates we can't go to the police because you signed a non-disclosure agreement.
Yeah.
You can't tell them what they put in you.
Yeah, all that setup of him being in the wheelchair, having that non-disclosure, it's just a neat little way to package that all up. And it again, it throws another complication in for him that the detective is onto him.
Yeah. And I did like a couple of those sequences where she comes to see him, and that particular one where Stem is basically talking him through how to be interviewed.
Yeah.
It's a really good way to do it. The fight in the toilet,
yeah,
where he absolutely touches up like fucking four blokes.
Yep.
That's great. And he's talking his way through it. And he's quipping, and he's starting to get a little cocky.
Yeah.
With what he can do, which sort of comes back later, which I liked, with regards to how he deals with Fisk.
Yes.
Later on. And that's the other thing I really loved was the idea of the guns implanted in their arm. I thought that was an excellent idea.
Yeah.
Strange, but really intriguing.
Again, I felt like they probably could have used it a little more, but I did really like that. I also was I was happy to see Kenny's brother serving drinks in the bar.
Is that Kenny's brother?
Clayton Jacobson, yeah.
Right.
So he was serving drinks. I was waiting for Kenny to walk out of the crapper and go, there's a smell in there that'll outlast religion or something like that, come out talking about, there's another classic example of someone having a 2-inch arsehole and us having installed a 1-inch pipe. I mean, that would have been perfect. But I actually really liked his delivery of the line when he kind of walks in and he goes, and then he looks over his shoulder and he goes, I'm going to need a phone and a fucking mop. I thought that was pretty good stuff.
I also love the way they shot that bit where he let Stem cut that bloke up and torture him on the ground.
Yeah, that was
and they don't show it. They just have him. It's obvious he doesn't want to see it.
Yeah, that was actually my favourite part of the scene. It was almost like this sort of good cop, bad cop situation, but in his own body.
Yeah, and Stem's cutting him up, and he's looking away.
Yeah.
Desperately trying to avoid having to see it.
And I kind of like it because, as you said, like he doesn't have the stomach for it, but he's desperate to find out what happened to his wife.
Yeah.
It's all fun. He's making those fun, those kind of gags. And then when it comes to that, he's kind of as you said, they stay on his face and he's looking away and doesn't want a bar of it and then continues on. I really, I dug that.
I like the little Easter egg at the hacker's apartment when he goes to the hacker to try and override the signal so he doesn't cut him off. If you notice when he goes up to the front door to ring the hacker's apartment, it's got all the other apartments enlisted on the wall there, who's in it. And one of them is J1. It's listed as being one of the apartment dwellers, so I thought that was a cool little Easter egg to throw in James 1, because obviously those two created Saw and Insidious and all that stuff. So, nice little shout out to his mate.
Yep. Nice touch.
Yeah, I liked the idea of being able to see someone's memories in playback, almost like CCTV.
Yeah.
How they kind of get that guy's memories and check to see who he dealt with.
I'd still like to know how he did it, but it worked a little better than it did in Wild Wild West, that's for sure.
Oh, was that in what? Stay tuned. We need to get to that because that's got some shit in it. But is that the
big time?
Again, side note, is that the one where Ted Levine's got a fucking? It looks like a gramophone head hanging out of his ear.
Yeah, I think so.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Good
shit.
Lord.
That was awful.
Yeah. But, yeah, look, they don't explain how. They kind of don't explain how.
It's another one of those situations where you don't really need it. Initially, I thought he was still alive.
Yeah.
So they were just kind of, accessing it from his brain somehow.
But again, I guess
don't ask me to go too deep into how I thought that was what was happening. I'm just I'm just throwing ideas against the wall here. I'm just spitballing. And again, he was altered.
Yes.
So that was something that we knew. So you didn't have to ask too many questions about it. It was just a sound idea that
something. He's different. So is Fisk.
Yeah.
So is Grey. There's something going on. This is how they're all connected. Okay, they're kind of robotic in some capacity. So I can kind of buy into it. I just like the way it just quickly gives us a quick understanding of how they track him down or who he is.
Yeah,
they work out who he is.
Yeah, it was nice and neat.
Yeah, neat. My favourite bit of STEM work is when he turns that guy's fucking handgun on his own head, basically blows it clean off.
Yeah, that was fucking awesome.
He just kind of twists it back in his face.
Yeah, and it was sort of, again, we were well aware that that's what was going on, but it was just something a little unexpected.
Yeah.
We just, stems in the flow of it, and then he just grabs his elbow and then bang. It was just, it was just another very cool way to use the things you'd established to give us something just a little bit different. And it was only about 30 seconds before that, Fisk shooting through the elevator.
Yeah.
Which, again, I fucking loved it. Because it was just using... Yeah, we're doing these action movie things, but we're doing them... he's using those abilities to see where the elevator is, and then bang, bang, just two people gone like that before the sequence even starts, just playing with our expectations a little bit. I thought that was really cool.
Again, and I think they did that predominantly throughout pretty well.
Yeah.
They actually kept
it was just
tweaking things enough.
Well, going right back to the start. Like, number one, I love the shot of the accident, how the car, inside the car sort of stayed stationary.
Yeah.
But then you see him flipping around and whatever. But as soon as the bad guys are on the scene, again, the expectation is when Fisk starts talking, it's going to be a little bit prolonged. And then he just, bang, just shoots Asher, just like that.
Yeah.
And so when you first saw that, it was like, oh, shit. Playing with our conditioning to expect, here's the fucking long-winded villain just going to blurt something out and it's going to take a while, but it doesn't.
Yeah.
And then I love the way he just kind of goes till death do us part and fucking walks off. Like, I just felt from the start that, especially Fisk, I was a bit of a fan of his performance. I've got a little bit of a dislike about the arc of the character overall, but I liked what he brought to it.
Yeah, agreed. I really like the car chase between him and Detective Cortez and how STEM takes over another vehicle.
Yeah, that was awesome.
To put her out of commission by basically reversing it into her. Again, the way it was shot was, nice and clean. It was fast and exciting. It didn't even go too overboard with the cuts and stuff. There's a lot of clean sort of shots that are longer than normal in that type of environment. And then just adding STEM saying, I think I can help.
Felt like I did recognise parts of that road too. I'm pretty sure. I can't remember exactly where it's shot. I would like to look it up because I looked at it and thought, I'm pretty sure I've seen parts of that road. But then again, there's a few roads that look like that around the Melbourne area. But yeah, definitely saw the Balti Bridge in there. That was something.
Yeah.
That was in there. Melbourne was a pretty good place to set it, I think, because the parts of it they used suited the future but not too far kind of setting that they were going for.
Yeah, which I dug. Not too much over the top. No flying cars or any of that sort of shit. And it was mostly grounded in some kind of reality of the situations. And the thing that didn't ground it was everybody involved had some kind of implant in them. So I liked that. And, the places where he went to fight blokes are basically just scummy bars and shitty apartments. It wasn't like futuristic set places. So I liked that.
Yeah, I thought it was good.
I thought the final fight between him and Fisk was pretty good. The idea that he couldn't kind of get through, like it was the tactical options that Stem's throwing out there, and he can't even lay a hand on him, and then he kind of Gray's the one who kind of finishes it.
Yeah,
so to
gets the
speak.
human element involved.
Yeah.
That
And
sort of...
I kind of like
Yeah.
that again, coming back to him, perhaps kind of shaking off STEM for a brief period.
Yeah.
I thought they were good ideas, and they kind of came back nicely on themselves. And my last like was, although I wasn't a huge fan of the ending, I did like the idea that STEM has been controlling, spoilers, which again it'll be a dislike, which I explained, but he's controlling Eron and has been the whole time, and has been controlling Grey, and now Grey, he kind of basically just almost lobotomizes Grey, puts him away in his mind, and then just heads off to do more.
I did like that aspect. I didn't mind that he sort of got basically locked away in his own head.
Yeah. I thought that was a solid idea.
It just felt like it, I think there's a dislike to it. It just, even though I didn't mind that part, that Stem walked away, it did feel like it was lacking in some way. Like it just didn't feel like the sort of grand slam ending that you were sort of hoping for.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was pretty satisfied enough to have the kind of downer ending of him being trapped in his head and then Stem walking away.
Now, do you have any other likes, mate?
No, that was that was it for me.
Yeah. Well, look, sliding straight into the dislikes, and I think I'll start with the reason why I think the ending struggles a little bit for me. It's the relationship between him and his wife. It's kind of non-existent.
Yeah,
it's
very
sort of
quick.
touched on very early on. It's a handful of scenes at best, and it doesn't convince that you would want to get revenge like this.
Yeah, it's not... I hear what you're saying. There's a lack of kind of emotion to it all, and it feels like there should be, because we're trying to... We've got this battle between the human and the robot. And obviously we've just established with the bad guy that the difference is there's an emotional element. There's a connection to other people and the feeling and whatever that Stem, for whatever reason, doesn't seem to develop, even though they say he can learn anything or whatever at the start.
Yeah.
He doesn't seem to develop those emotions or have any interest in the connections. So, yeah, I agree. I think it felt like there should have been something a bit stronger there.
Yeah, because it's certainly not the actor's fault, because the actors are fine. It's just that, you could have even gone 10 minutes longer at the front. Yeah, and just given me some depth about their relationship. But there was kind of nothing. Like, even that opening sequence where she comes home and he's working on his car and everything like that, it just doesn't... Like, there's nothing, and I know this is cliche, but a lot of movies, when they're doing this kind of thing, is they give you a memory or a situation that the pair are in that makes them in love or whatever, Yeah. They kind of preface this by saying they're in love because of this. This just kind of glossed right over it. And whether or not that's because they were trying to showcase that he's kind of still the human sort of guy with the normal car and everything. She's kind of attached to tech and she's a little bit cold or something. Like, I don't really know what they were trying to achieve.
Yeah, but even then, you just kind of said it. If she's got an attachment to the tech, then surely you can connect that somehow, can't you? Like, it's everything else is... He's now fucking up to his ass in the tech. Like, there could have been something there. Like,
classic example, mate. And one of the better ways this is done with probably less than they ever had in here is RoboCop.
Yeah.
Hey, you don't see his wife or his son. They do not interact with Murphy ever in that film. It is nothing but memories that they showcase.
Yeah.
And it works.
But I think this ties into my dislike around that any of the statements on technology are very surface level, and then they're sort of just left.
Pushed. Yeah.
You get the basic message again that the tech is using us, and you've got to be careful with it, whatever. I mean, I actually read a comparison to RoboCop that raised a really good point about how RoboCop, number one, it's got that satire element, but number two, when it comes to the character of RoboCop, it's actually a really solid exploration of what makes you human.
Yeah.
And the difference between the human and the machine. And I think you've kind of pinpointed where not doing that kind of results in struggling to finish it off.
Well, that's right.
With the heightened kind of emotions and, yeah.
He's now in his head with her, but there's no pay because I don't believe that relationship is there.
Yeah. And as we said, you know, it's not, I'm not saying it's, I mean, I think the movie felt pretty solid as an actioner with these elements in it.
Yeah.
But to really kind of elevate above anything more than that, you kind of needed to explore that a little bit more. And I think, yeah, I agree with you. I just didn't buy that relationship all that much.
It didn't dull the film greatly, but it's one of its weaknesses. And the second weakness for me was the mystery element that I don't think they're trying that hard with the mystery stuff.
No.
But there's still a detective on the case. There's still moments where you're wondering who did this and why.
Yeah.
And when you get to it, it's just kind of like, oh, okay.
Yeah, well, that's right. It felt like we needed a bigger sort of kicker at the end, a bigger twist.
And, you could see that Aaron was involved from fucking minute one.
Yeah.
The twist is that Stem has been controlling him.
Yeah.
But even then, it just doesn't have a lot of payoff.
No.
And they kind of flash back to a few sequences to show you that Stem was leading him around.
It almost would have worked better if they had just done almost like like a Usual Suspects.
Yeah.
Like that you don't find out that Stem was doing it all along until he locks him in his own mind and walks off.
Yeah.
Or something.
Or something of that nature. You didn't know that Stem had any involvement with Aaron. You know, it wasn't in him. You know, that kind of thing could have worked.
I also felt like the bit at the end with Fisk and the talk about you're one of us now and all this sort of stuff, I felt like that could have been explored a little bit more to the ending.
Because he makes mention of, we brought you into our I can't remember the word he uses, but basically you're one of us. And essentially he's saying we kind of brought you into being a robot, essentially.
Yeah. I kind of got, just in that sequence before they finish it all off, I kind of just got these little flashes of kind of Blade Runner type vibes. I thought, did we wipe him out too quickly? Could he have been part of the ending somehow? And
yeah.
I don't know, but, you know, I haven't thought too deeply about how that would work, but I just felt, again, I think I was only thinking about that because, you know, I knew that ending was coming and it wasn't quite what we wanted.
Yeah, a little disappointing, I think I'd say. Not hugely disappointing because I think the film is more of an action film where we aren't going to go too deep. Like, the interesting part, when we talk about RoboCop is, at first glance, RoboCop would have been seen as a schlocky B action film. But when you look at RoboCop, even today, it still crackles with fucking satire and, you know, it still has relevance to what it was saying, even back then. Plus all the great action scenes, plus the violence, plus, you know, all those things. Whereas this has kind of got half of what RoboCop had, which is the top-class action stuff and all that, but it doesn't go deep enough into yet it probably has more fertile ideas and current ideas that could have been really sort of mined.
Yeah, there could have been a bit more to it. I mean, like going into the whole AI thing. I mean, we said it had some really awesome moments of using that, like you said, the devil on the shoulder, and that he lost control of it and whatnot. It just felt like there could have been something more to really push it over the edge to a kind of 4.5 star movie pretty easily.
Exactly. And that's what keeps it out of that high echelon. It sacrifices the ideas for the visceral
For some of the action.
moments.
You're right.
The only other thing I had was the performance of Eron just didn't. It just didn't
do it
sit
for
well. Yeah, it didn't sit well for me. I know it was kind of meant to be kind of like Steve Jobs or something like that. A strange, like, you know, super smart but socially awkward type of guy. But there was just something about the performance that it felt cold, it felt pretty lackluster. I think, you know, a better performance there could have perhaps hidden some of the, we know it's going to be him.
Yeah, possibly.
Although, you know, there's no other options.
That's the thing. It's such a small, it's a relatively small cast.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not it's not Kenny's brother. We're left with about 5 other people.
You know, the one thing I was initially thinking might have been going on, but it wasn't. I thought the detective might have been a flip. She was a robot too.
Well, I mean, that's the sort of thing that you're kind of looking for in the ending, aren't you? Like something like that, the surprise. Because there wasn't really a surprise anywhere.
Yeah.
Rather than the surprise is STEM was controlling you all along, but you sort of even... I mean, you kind of were half expecting that sort of stuff too.
Yeah. Everything was fairly telegraphed.
Yeah.
To the end. And that's part of, I guess, a small budget, a small cast.
Yeah.
It
limits you in ways, I guess.
Yeah, and that's where it's limited. You have no other options other than Eron. He has to be involved in some way. He's this weird fucking dude that we saw from minute 1 who was a bit shady.
Yeah.
And he's the guy who put that chip in your neck. So he has to be involved somehow. So I just felt let down by the ideas not being mined enough to give us more. Like, that movie could have done with another $5 million in the kitty.
Yeah, possibly. But I mean, even at the start, I guess you've got to have the story to justify that. And if there wasn't, if this stuff was where it is on the screen at the end, you know, after they've shot it all,
yeah,
is it going to help?
Yeah, true. Maybe more on the page they needed to flesh some of that stuff out. I mean, it could have probably been a little longer for me.
Yeah,
I think they're
talking about
15 minutes.
Yeah, I think they're talking about doing a TV show now, aren't they?
Oh, really?
Or possibly taking it into a TV show.
Well, that could work.
Yeah, I'd be happy to have a look at that. You could kind of build the world out a little bit.
Agreed. Now, did you have any other dislikes?
Oh, I just had a couple of minor things that I noted. First one, why the fuck does a protein shake look like a glass of bloody murky urine or something? Fuck.
Right. The future.
I know it's the future, but I didn't ask for the bloody Bear Grylls special. I asked for a protein shake.
Yeah, listen, don't fucking give me a glass of piss. I said a protein shake. Did you not hear me?
Yeah, I mean, I have trouble with my Google understanding me sometimes too, but yeah, I said protein shake, not glass of piss. The couple of times I was a bit sort of like, would the cops have noticed this sort of stuff? Like, watching it back this time, I was in the mindset of, you know, I know Stem's controlling it all and trying to place the pieces where he wants them, but would the cops have not noticed there was no gun? Because it seems like when it's brought to his attention, he just zooms in and it's pretty clear there's no gun.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, would that be something they might, you know, you can imagine if they're cops, they've got this, they might have watched the video and zoomed in on each person or something like that. So I was sort of looking at that like, oh, okay, if it was that easy for him. I also didn't love the particular line, which I felt was a bit of a stinker, was, see, you thought I was an invalid, but you didn't know that I was a fucking ninja.
Yeah.
It doesn't come out well. And I kind of
No.
get what they're going for. I feel like they're trying to get him to be this kind of, the confidence is kind of bubbling now that he's seen what Stem can do after the first fight, and he's kind of going along with it. I kind of get it. They want him to kind of make a bumbling sort of hero or bumbling attempt at a hero line, but it just comes out really badly, and it almost like, in an otherwise really good scene, it sticks out like dog's balls. So yeah, I wasn't real pleased with that. And the other one was, I know Gray has the experience driving the cars, but Stem is pretty clearly better at everything else. He's fucking obviously quicker. He's obviously thinking quicker. So why would he need Gray to take over when they're driving?
Yeah.
I missed something there, but he's like, you need to take over.
Throwback to him knowing the vehicle.
It was sort of like, but I'm looking at it and I'm like, I mean, fuck. You've seen what he can do, how quick he can move, reactions, all the shit you would need to be a good driver. So I'm pretty sure he's got you covered on this one.
Yeah, exactly. I think he's a far better candidate to drive the vehicle.
Yeah, and I actually was looking forward to that because I wanted to see, again, that shit applied to a car chase. I was hoping for, could we do the same sort of thing with a car chase? Give this mechanical aspect to the driving. I kind of felt like that was a chance to do a little bit more with that.
Yeah.
Other than that, I didn't really have a whole lot of issues with it. I mean, it's a very enjoyable film.
Very entertaining. It's not one that had been on the radar, put it that way.
Yeah.
So it's good to come across something like that and say, well, that was a really, really good film. Just not quite there yet it had the fertile ground to be really, really interesting.
Yeah,
but
that's right.
It didn't go for it, which is disappointing.
Yeah, it's sort of one of those ones where you're picking out the dislikes because you really just sort of you wanted it to be a great film because you enjoyed it so much.
Yeah, agreed. Then there was room to be a great film, but it just didn't quite stretch to that, which is slightly disappointing. But that is Upgrade. You can find us on iTunes, Spotify and Podomatic. Send us an email at thrillme@iinet.net.au. As I said before, we've got a Letterboxd account, so check us out on there. We're on Facebook at Thrill Me Podcast Australia, Podomatic at thrillme.podomatic.com, and we're on Instagram at thrillmepodcast. Next episode, Jared. We already teased this, so I'm not going to muck around here. Best of the best 1 and 2. Is that correct? We're going to do a double bill.
Double bill.
Part 4 or something. I was going to throw this at you. Triple bill.
Yeah, but if we were going to do that, we'd need to seek out part 3 and just make it a 4-parter.
Anyone got part 3? Come on.
I'm sure we can find it somewhere.
It's probably on YouTube. That's where I haven't looked.
Yeah, it might pop up there.
Yeah. But until then, take it easy and we'll catch up with everyone later. Cheers.
Find the podcast at Podomatic or on iTunes. Don't forget to rate and review. Like us on Facebook at Thrill Me Podcast Australia or contact us at thrillme, all one word, all lowercase, at iinet.net.au.